Here they come.
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Popping in. It's always fun to watch that. A lot of names I'm recognizing. Hello, hello, hello to all our friends as they're coming in. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We hope that you are going to learn stuff. That's always the goal. And just as a friendly reminder, we've hit record on this. So if you get distracted, of course, you're going to be so hyper focused on us that you won't turn away. But if you get distracted or something happens, we do have this recorded. You will be able to come back and watch it. But thank you all so much for joining in today. We're going to get started here momentarily.
Yeah.
Wow, good crap.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody. And since we're just kind of waiting for people to join in, I'll just put a reminder out there that this is Zoom webinar. So just a reminder, use that Q&A box to put your questions in. That's the one that we see. You won't be able to see all the questions as they come in, but as soon as we answer them, you'll see them in the answered tab. So that Q&A box is what we want to use over the chat.
Yes, you can Q&A us anytime. Say hi, hello, whatever. And as we respond to them, like Jordan just said, you'll see the responses, so they'll pop in. So that's a great window just to open up and set to the side as we get going here. All right. Well, with that, let's at least do our introductions. I'm Allison James. I am going to take the lead on the first half of the webinar, followed by Jordan, who is going to do the second half of the webinar. Chrissy and Christina are our moderators helping answer the questions. Christina is going to help me with my portion as well. She's jumping in with a great sample. One of the things that I love, and I'm hearing really good feedback from everyone, is we do like to do a little bit of show and tell. So you might be surprised if you see your site pop up on this webinar as a one that we're like, check this out, see what they're doing. I think it is always interesting to see what other folks are doing with our system and how they're utilizing it. You guys are very creative. And if by chance, as we're showing stuff, you're sitting there going, they should show mine because I've done something really cool, stick it in the question and answer. We'd love to give a nod to any of the work you're doing. Sometimes we don't realize what you're doing because you haven't shared it with us. So always tell your account manager because we geek out on this stuff like no other. Here's our basic agenda today. We are going it's advanced forms. I shouldn't use the word complicated. It's advanced forms, but we want you to know certain rules and things as you're trying to think, gosh, how can I do this? So just that reminder, if you have a paper form, a PDF of anything, or you're utilizing another tool, you're utilizing Sign Up Genius, you're utilizing Survey Monkey, you're utilizing another form tool, there's probably a pretty good chance that that could be just done through your website. So make sure you're reaching out to us and having that conversation because your website can do some really, really amazing forms. So we're going to give you some tips on that. A big chunk of this is going to be talking about the Stripe payment processor and web forms. Many of you have stopped utilizing either Civi CRM or another tool for processing transactions, and you're able to add that Stripe payment bar right to a form, put the form right on a page, great user experience, but it's still on the newer side for our customers. And we often sit there with folks going, I'm not really sure how to do this. So we're going to step you through that process as much as possible. We're also going to say, it's probably a good idea to have your account manager do a follow-up on those as well, just to make sure. And test. So we'll build a Stripe form. We'll put it on the website. We'll talk a bit about it, computed twigs. And again, that's one of those, this is an advanced class, folks. So computed twigs are math formulas. Welcome to math class. I love math. I'm so sorry, but I do. So we can figure out some calculations. They're simple math formulas, but it is technically code. And it's not something you have to do. But if you want to be able to do this yourself, we're going to teach you how. So there you go. And then Jordan's going to go through all the setting stuff with web forms, and your web forms have lots of setting options. So hang in tight. We're try not to fire hose you too badly, but let's go through some of this stuff here. So I just have a few. And this is recorded. Yes, we put all the recordings out on our support site. There's a whole section called webinars. Every webinar we've done is recorded and out there. So you can watch this over and over again. Isn't that great? All right, advanced web forms. A few things, just brainstorm honestly of some ideas. Most of you know how to do conditionals. I don't even consider that advanced, but that's just something when you add a field, you're able to click conditional and you're able to say, if they say yes, then I want this to show. If they say no, then I want this to show. Conditionals gives you options like visible or hidden. We really encourage that you try and stick with always making things visible as opposed to hiding something, because otherwise it was there and they saw it and then it went away, and that just confuses your user. And it's really more logical for people to see things pop up when they say, did your spouse give also? And they say yes, and then you say, who's your spouse? And so something like that. Math calculations, computed twigs. We can do math. We can do some pretty sophisticated math. I'm going to do some simple math for you, but just know that math formulas is something that the system does do. Redirection based on the answer to a question. Jordan's going to go over this stuff for you, but we've seen this a lot with our United Ways to Do pledge cards. If they say they're giving by payroll deduction, then they get sent to a different page than if they say they're giving by credit card, then they get sent to a payment page, and how to do all of that. So that's a special setting in the settings area. Also, emails can send based on answers to questions. Maybe you have a form and you're like, which department are you trying to reach? And they say accounting, and you have it set that whenever someone says accounting, it sends to this person, or whenever someone says marketing, it sends to that person. So there are conditionals also based on answers to questions for who gets sent an email copy. That's cool. Access, who sees your results? There's settings for that. You can allow someone to log into your site who can't edit your site, but simply can get to, like, maybe you're doing a golf tournament and you have a golf chair who's really anxious and involved and wants to see what's going on. And you're like, I'm going to get you a login so you can go to the results page and just kind of watch it yourself and pull reports and do that yourself. We can do that. Your system can do that. So that's kind of a neat little side benefit on forms. Option limits. I got 10 spaces and 10 spaces only. And when those 10 spaces are done, it needs to be full. We can do that. Jordan's got that one. Different submit buttons based on answers to questions. That's actually just a pretty thing. So we'll go through the fact that, like, if they give you this answer, maybe you want the button to be very clear to them and say, just go here to learn more, and it takes them to that page. So we'll talk about that stuff. And then preview and draft options that are also part of forms that are again settings. So Jordan, I just kind of touched on a bunch of the things you're going to talk about, mostly because I thought I want to get everyone thinking about kind of what all is coming ahead for us in this whole conversation today. So I'm going to launch a poll. That's the one thing I didn't get myself ready to do. Here it is. I'm about to talk about Stripe and Stripe web forms. So before I do that, I'm curious, as you guys as a group, what your utilization is. So let's launch this poll. Look at your screen now, if you would please, and answer this question. So are you using Stripe web forms on your website? You get one choice. It's yes, only on my donation pages, yes on my donations and events, no, but I'd like to, and no, not really that interested. We're using something else. We're happy with it, which is fine. You're still going to get stuff out of it if you're not about the Stripe web forms. This next section might not be as exciting to you because I'm about to do Stripe web forms, but I'm also going to do the computer twigs with it. So, all right. This is when I see how many people are paying attention to their screen. I must have lulled a few people to sleep with that last pitch on that. I apologize for that. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Or when I told them, hey, if you have to do something else, it's recorded. They stepped away. Okay, here's our results. So about half of you are actively using it for donations and events. That's fantastic. Some are only on the donation page, so you're about to learn a little bit more, and some are just interested. So that's great. A few of you, not so much, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get going. Thanks for participating in that. I just think it's interesting for us to see where you're at as we're doing these webinars. All right, so let's talk about Stripe and web forms. We're going to do some work on a form. We're going to finish a form out that's already started. We're going to do some math formulas. We're going to add the Stripe processor. We're going to add the handler. We're going to do all this stuff. As I get ready to do this, this is just a slide just to reiterate a few things. One of the things, whether it's a Stripe web form, oh, no, let me just do it from here. Suggestion. If you're going to do a Stripe web form, it's usually easiest to clone an existing form because there are a lot of settings in there. I will warn you though, the form you might not want to clone from is your main donate form, because that one, especially if you have the two options, if they say fee or not fee, that one's got a lot of complication to it. But once you get yourself a pretty standard event form or payment form, those are the ones that are easiest to clone from and tweak. But often I'll get a call and be like, the math formula is not right. Well, no, the math formula is probably not right. If you've got different amounts in a different thing, then the formulas have to be changed. So anyway, must have a Stripe payment field in the form. So we will show how to add the Stripe payment field to the form. You have to have the Stripe handler added. So in order to use Stripe as a payment processor on your web form, you have to have those pieces in place. We have to use a number. A number is what has to go to the Stripe processor, right? So it doesn't have a dollar sign. It's a number. It's a straight up number. So we'll make sure as we're doing the settings that we're very aware that we're looking for a number. When you have a question like, what do you want to do? Do you want, I'll use that golf tournament example. Do you want to buy mulligans and pay for a T sign and pay for a golf thing? You can't have check boxes with totals next to each one and expect the system to know how to add it. So I'm going to note that check boxes and math formulas do not work together. And this might be something that doesn't necessarily click until you try and do it. We've got to use a one option, like a radio where they pick one. They picked mulligans, and now mulligans are $25, and then that total comes in. Or they put a number amount in. How many mulligans do you want? They're $25 each, and they put in 3. That's fine. So there are a few rules and parameters, and that's why you probably want to get with your account manager and go over some of the stuff if you're like, wow, this is kind of a lot, right? Computed twigs, we have math formulas for calculating and processing fees, option limits on forms, that's on forms in general, and then accessing who can see results, make edits. So let's jump into this. Yep, that's you. So let me go find my pages and then we'll do our forms. One other thing with the Stripe payment processors, I saw someone go, I don't know the answer to this question, is you have to have a Stripe account, and we have to have had your Stripe account connected to us in order to be able to use Stripe. So that is not necessarily something that you've done yet. And if you're unsure about that, we can check on it. But most of our customers do have Stripe accounts. If you don't, we can help you get that set up. It's they have a nonprofit rate specifically for nonprofits that is cheaper than the for-profit rate. So you do want to have a Stripe account. We do get it connected to us. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to do our show and tell piece now. And I got Christina ready to help me out with some of these. This is when we went and looked at some of the cool Stripe stuff you guys are doing, like neat forms with some Stripe payment processors on it. And we're like, wow, look how creative you are. So this is United Way of Indiana County, and Christina, take it away. Let's talk about these guys, what they're up to.
Yeah, thank you. So shout out to my ladies, Angela and Christina over at Indiana County. So this year we did something new. They were using a third-party source for their campaign kickoff. They do a big basket raffle for their kickoff each year. And so we brought this over into their website and created a web form. So you'll see you've got the options at the top. Actually, if you'll refresh your screen,
Oh, okay.
um,
Let me go to the
well,
screen.
not refresh, but yes,
Oh,
because I made some tweaks for
right.
them.
And we don't, we decided we were gonna show this and we're like, let's not show, let's pull a copy so we can talk about it.
But yes, so on their form, they've got where you can purchase the tickets, they've got some hot air balloon rides, and then they've got their basket raffle at the top. So we've got the number fields that we're utilizing as Allison specified. So they have, each item has a specific dollar amount attached to it, and then they just specify the number of those items they wish to purchase. And then here, going down to our raffle baskets, we have utilized the container web form element, which Allison will go into more detail, but that's what allows you to gives us that stacked view. So even when you go to a mobile phone, all of those are showing nicely stacked. You have the field with the picture underneath, field picture. So as individuals are going through, they can those items stay connected to each other. But yeah, so they've that's kind of
Oh, there
I'm
you go.
excited. Yeah, to see they just launched it. I think they just wrapped up the basket raffle, so I'm anxious to hear all about it from them in the coming days. But yeah, so lots of
They're
cool
coming.
ways.
Now, just to throw out there, because I can see the sparks flying around here. This is not an auction tool. We don't have that auction platform, right? This is selling individual raffle tickets based on these numbers. There's some manual work that these folks will have to do and going, oh, Allison bought this many raffle tickets for evening cuddles and chef corner and whatever. So they have to track and they have to do some work on that to figure that out. But they're making it easy for folks to do it on their phone through their website. I love this. I think it's a great sample. Thank you, Christina. Okay. I'm going to give you an example of a registration form of sorts. This is with a church, and it's time to sign up your kids for a religious education program. This is one complicated form with a lot of payments on it. And I really liked the way they pulled it together. They were using these Google Docs and it was complicated. They've got media releases. They've got all of this text that they are required to have. But here's where we get into a part that I think is interesting for everyone to note. Child 1, okay, it's Catholic Church. I think they go up to like 8 kids. I don't know, but it keeps going. So we got child 1, we put the name in, the information, what grade they're in, what program they're in, etc. But there's costs associated with it potentially. If they need a Bible, then they're going to have a $20 fee. Maybe they have an activity fee, then they have to pay that. And then we go, do you have another child? And we say yes. So it's all the same fields. So I do want to take a moment to make a comment about this. If you have a complicated form like this, that's going to repeat a whole set of the same exact questions again, please reach out to your account manager. We have a way of doing it on the back end that is much quicker than copying each field. Unfortunately, the system will not allow you to copy that entire chunk. You have to copy a field at a time. We, however, can do something on the code side that is more efficient and is a better use of time for everyone. So I helped her with this and we went ahead and did child 2. Same thing, we have some dollar amounts. And so by the time this is all done, how many kids are you enrolling, et cetera, you've got a total fee at the bottom. So theirs is, how are you going to pay for this? If I'm paying by credit and debit card, this is that conditional button. I'm going to be taken to a payment page. If I'm mailing a check, then this is what I need to do. And the next page is going to give me mailing check instructions. But so let's do this one. The credit debit card, if I was to click it, I haven't filled out the form. It won't let me because I have to do all the required fields. This is the page that will pop up. And in this scenario, unfortunately, we can't put this processor on the bottom of that page. Why? Well, processors are very, very finicky. Once you add a Stripe payment processor to a page, it must process. It can't be, oh, they picked check, so it hides. It's got to happen. That's just, processors don't hide. That doesn't work. So the form will fail, it won't work. So that is why there's a secondary page for that credit card option, which takes them here. So now they do have to have a little bit of knowledge to say, hey, you got to enter that amount from the other page. So the person would come here, enter the amount, have the same name. You're like, I don't want them to have to fill out a whole bunch of information again, but we do need them to at least give some references here so we know who's paying it. And usually they can tell by the timestamp on it. So so yeah, that's one of the more complicated ones that I thought was interesting and well done, and they've been very pleased with it from what I've heard. So there you go. Let's do a couple other show and tells. This is a Build from the Heart campaign. This United Way got donated a building, but they need to refab it a bit. So they got this building, they got to do renovations, and so now they have all these sponsorship levels, right? So here you go with your different sponsorship levels with the form on it. Notice there's no button here. So the buttons have been made conditional based on what I pick. So I'm going to go all in. I'm doing the big visionary sponsor, and I'm going to mail a check. So that's going to give me the submit with this. This is kind of like the other one. If I do pay online by credit card, then I'm going to go to the next page and I'm going to put the credit card in. So we are starting to see that being a fairly common option with the forms, where we send them to 2 different places based on their choice, if you're giving both choices. A great thing is if you aren't going to offer the check option on a form and you're just going to go straight for credit cards, it's very efficient. You'll get a lot done with it. I always kind of question, I'm like, if someone's going to give a check, I'm not 100% sure how likely they are to go to the website and fill out a form and then send a check in. I feel like a lot of the check writing individuals, especially in a sponsorship like this, it's just going to walk in and hand you a check. But you know, it's nice to track it. It's nice to have it. So whatever makes sense for you, you have options in how that goes through. Okay, one more, and then I'm going to start working on this. This is, and I believe this event's over. This is a gala in the Vineyard. They automatically added a 2.2% fee. So one of the great things about using the Stripe forms and just using web forms in general is we have the ability to do math formulas. And because we can do math formulas, we can add fees. You can make it required. You can ask them if they want to do it, or you just skip it all together and you take it as part of cost of doing business. They have some reservation categories. Individual ticket is the individual ticket information. Table, we got the table and who all is going to be at your table. So those are all conditional based. Then we got sponsorship levels. And they've got a few of these sold out. And then you can pick the options, and then they bring them in, and all of the totals and the cards right there, and you add that in, and there you go. So yeah, we have seen all sorts of levels, but once you start having like choices, so like this one, they can only pick one choice, right? Because these are same as radios or buttons. They can only pick one choice. They can't pick more than one. The system cannot calculate on multiple choices in one question. It doesn't know what field has the number value for the math. If that makes sense. All right. We got questions coming in. We good?
Yeah, we got quad questions, but we're spitting out the answers, hopefully.
Okay. So and I just saw one that was up there. So what we are focused on here in this moment is a Stripe payment processor. And I do get asked if our web forms can do other payment processors. Could a web form do PayPal? Could a web form do Venmo? Can a web form do another payment processor? And the answer is not really. However, if you get creative in what you're doing and you have a button that takes them to PayPal, you could send them to PayPal. They would have to enter that dollar amount, right? Just like I showed you with Stripe. So if you have a PayPal account, there's ways to put in a field the link to send them to your PayPal account, or the link to send them to Venmo to pay online. So there are options. You're going to want to talk to us. There are creative ways of doing some of that stuff. It can get a little complicated. The only one that allows us to put the processor right on the page where they actually can put the credit card number in on the page is Stripe. That's the only one we got that does that. Okay. All right. So this has been, I'm now logged into our demo site. So you're going to see our little demo messages popping up, etc. This is the Stripe donate form that the majority of our customers are deciding that they want to use. So we have 3 versions of a donate form that will clone to your site for free if you don't have it already. Version 1 does not take out any processing fees. Version 2 takes processing fee, doesn't even ask, says you're going to be charged processing fee because it's 2023 and you're just going to be charged processing fee. And donate number 3 is what most of you kind-hearted folks like to use. God bless you. You say, hey, do you want to cover the fee? We're going to ask. We're going to be nice. We're going to give you a choice. But, but the majority of us will set it as yes, as the default answer. And you have to make that conscious effort to change it to no. I like that. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to force it on the yes and make them actually click no to turn it off. So this, it doesn't look like anything has happened when I went from yes to no. Why? Because these look exactly the same. But in fact, they changed. So when they say yes, you have the one-time donations up to other whatever they want. You have the recurring donations, and it's telling them, hey, you're doing the processing fee, so this is what the rates are going to be, right? And then we have the quarterly ones. If they say no, my recurring, even though that button looks the same, doesn't have that. So to show you this on the back end, and this is something we will build for you, to understand that the recurring monthly and the recurring quarterly is actually a product that our team builds for you in your Stripe account. Unfortunately, we do not have the ability for a monthly recurring to say, how much do you want to give a month? We have to predefine them. So I'm going to show you when I look at editing this particular field that, and this is fake because it's my demo site, there would be a code here. That is the code that came from your Stripe account for what, $5.15 a month. If that, when that code carries over to Stripe, it knows $5.15 a month. So there is a lot of back-end setup, and what becomes super, super important in our world of Stripe and payment processors and math formulas is what appears in this option value. That's what's carrying information over to your processor. That's what's helping them understand what they're to do. So yeah, so we're going to just jump in and do a fun little exercise together of creating our own Stripe form. We're heading into the holiday season. I thought, why not? Got this idea from a customer of ours who does a holiday catalog. This is a great time to point out, I didn't mention Brian sitting out there on our call. We have a platform called Mindful Giving, which is pretty cool, that can help you do Amazon purchases and buy things for family members and folks and those in need in your community. So Brian just popped his face in wave. If you're interested in learning more about that, let us know, but that is a platform that we have available. This scenario, shifting gears, this scenario is the holiday catalog where they're selling their own stuff. So I've had organizations go, hey, we're going to sell our shirts, we're going to sell our books, we're selling product or services like swim lessons. And you could buy that as Christmas presents for your kids in our area. What a great idea. All right, so we're going to finish this form. This form is started. I've got a holiday catalog form, and I'm going to use this as a teaching tool where I've got shirts for $5. How many shirts do you want? I got books for $10. How many books do you want to purchase? And I got swim lessons for $25. How many swim lessons do you want? The form's not done yet. I need a payment processor. I need a math formula. Let's go finish it. All right. So this is the training part on how I do some of that stuff. Didn't want to build the whole form. So I got the form mostly done, and I'm going to go to the build page of that form. All right. When I build things in the form, I need to figure out where's my math coming in? How's my math formula working out? So I am on this line right here. It says number of $5 t-shirts. If you've used our web forms before, you know when you create a question or you add a number, the key, and I know this is really tiny, the key will be number underscore of underscore 5 underscore t underscore shirts. And before you hit save, if you're going to do math formulas, it's a really good idea to shorten your key, because otherwise I have to use the entire key in my math formula. So this is just a tip for you. Keeping your key short when you add things into your site will make it easier for you to do math formulas. So I've got shirts for $5, right? I've got books for $10, and I have swim lessons for $25. So I use the word shirt, book, and swim. I'm going to go ahead and create my math formula for you and show you how that works. So under add element, it's called a computed twig. And because I remember that, I'm going to use the search field for twig. Well, wig works too. Computed twig, it's this one down here. So I'm going to add a computed twig and I'm going to give it a title. The title is important because the title is what's going to carry over to Stripe, because this is where the dollar amount is at. Okay, so I'm going to go total. Oh, maybe I'm going to go total. There, let's get there. Total. I like to put a dollar sign afterwards, just so they see the dollar sign, but this is what I'm talking about the twig. Because I put a dollar sign, it put an underline at the end of it. And I frequently change the key. That's just me because I'm in these forms all the time. I don't like long keys. It makes it more difficult if I'm ever trying to manipulate a form. That's because that's what I do. But I'm going to get rid of that underscore and I'm going to keep my key as total. That's going to be important. That's the key that's got to go into my Stripe processor to go, this is where your total is. It's a number and it's going to be here. And it's based on a math formula. For right now, I'm going to leave this alone. It's going to view both on the form and on the submission, but there is a detail about that that we'll go over here in a moment. How do I write a computed twig? This is going to be stuff that you're probably going to learn to copy and paste from different areas, or ask us and we'll teach you. But data dot, and you have to use the right carets and the right characters. We'll put some samples out there, and that's why we're recording this, so you have it. Shirts are what, $5 times 5. So remember, the number that they're putting in the shirts is how many they're buying. It might be 1, it could be 10. I got to take that number and multiply it by 5. What if I put a line on this that says, hey, you're going to cover the processing fee? Well, the processing fee is 2.2% plus 30 cents per transaction. So I might just change it to $5.41 and have a line on here like we saw on that one that says you're covering the processing fee. So I'm going to add it in. I'm not going to do that for right now. I'm just explaining that that's something you could do. So that's the first one. Now I need to add it to the next one, which is data book times 10 plus data. What was it? Swim?
Yeah, swim. I think we need an extra A on the data dot books.
Thank you. Yep, you're right. And then I got to do my closed brackets. Okay, now, in order for it to show on the page, I have to check this box, which is automatically update value with computed twig with Ajax. That's a fancy tool that's out there in the tech world that allows this math formula to work and to show on the page. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but I almost always, when I create a formula, I put it on the page originally so I can test it and make sure it's working. Then I'm going to have to go through steps that Stripe requires me to go through that actually hides it from the page. But let's just make sure that I did my math right and didn't have any other typos. Jordan's got my back there on my missing A in data. So we're going to save this and take a look. Comments,
While
Jordan?
that's loading, yeah, while that's loading, that twig formula looks a little scary. Don't let it panic you. If you have questions on how to write that in, kind of with the brackets and where those go, connect with your account manager because we can help show you where that placement needs to be. And then usually, like Allison said, your cloning forms, you can kind of copy paste the same thing and then just tweak the value amounts as needed.
And look at my math go. $80. That's my total. And that's what's totaling out there, right? Okay. This is a payment processor. I'm adding Stripe to this and I'm going to have it pay out so that people can just buy it right here on the page and do this. Isn't that great? Well, unfortunately, the Ajax that I just mentioned in the computed twig conflicts with the Ajax of the Stripe payment processor. So this makes us do a little extra step, and this is where we're really in an advanced class. I need to now go back to that math formula and set it so it's not going to show on this page, it's going to show on a review page. Add my Stripe processor and add my review page. So a few more steps to this process. And yeah, this is taking me a minute, huh? Okay, so I'm going back to the build. And I'm going to come to my computed twig. I'm going to click edit on it. And here's what I need to do with this one. I need it to only show on the viewed submission. I need it not to appear on the form there. Okay. So they're not going to see it on the page that we're on. All right. Now I am going to add my Stripe processor to the page. So I'm going to add that element and it's called Stripe. You only have it if we have gone through this process of connecting Stripe to your website. If you have not done that yet, then we need to do that. We need to get Stripe connected to your website. There's nothing else I need to do here. Actually, I'm just adding the processor. That's it. It's very simple. So now we'll see that at the bottom of the page. And there it is. There's the payment processor. Okay, but this is where I need to do what's called a preview. You want to give your users the opportunity to review the page before they go to pay for it, because we've got a math formula and they'll see it on the next page, and it's just really a good idea of taking them through that step. So that is a setting that we can do. And I will take care of this particular setting there, Jordan. So we're going to go to form. And we are going to scroll down and set up a required preview setting, which I call preview or review. Please review and click submit. So, I mean, you can say whatever you want there. You got a space at the top that's going to pop on the page. You want to make sure they realize they're not done yet. They've still got to review it and hit submit. One of the things that I often do with my Stripe forms, though, is I pick which values are showing, and I typically will take off that payment row on the bottom. It will cause confusion to folks, so I will often uncheck that in my preview screen. Okay, and let's hit save. All right, so now my form looks like this. It has their information at the top with the payment, and then they go to a preview. On the preview screen, they'll see some information, including the total. And let's just do 2 shirts. Oh, I don't want to put a card in. So it will show you on the screen, they review it, and they go on. Okay, so let's go back to the settings on this though and go through your handler. So one of the things I said, in order for a Stripe form to work, there's 2 parts to it. You have to add the Stripe to the page, and you have to add the handler under emails and handlers. This is where you'd also say, send a copy to the person, send a copy to me, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through that. We've done those before, but I am going to add the handler. And in this case, I need to add the Stripe handler. Now, this is where you're like, there's a lot of settings to this, and how will I know what to put here? This is where I will frequently find a form that I've done before on the site and look at that handler to get some ideas, or reach out to your account manager. And that's also why it's usually best to clone an existing form, because then you have that information. So under payment information, it wants to know what field has my payment in it. Do we remember the name of the field? The name of the field was actually total. That's why I did that. I kept it short, so that's the amount, whatever's in that total field, that's what's going to the bank. That amount. So I need that. All right. It's no subscription. That's for your recurring. We're not doing that. We need to put the email address associated with it. I would recommend a description, a holiday catalog, and then metadata. Metadata is information that goes over to Stripe. This is again where I go back to something that I've previously done, and I'm going to copy this stuff. Your fields have to match up, which I know in this case, these fields do. So I'm just going to copy them. The title of the form is going to carry over, the URL of the form, the field called first name, which is first underscore name. That's going to be the key, last underscore name, and email. And Stripe will identify them by their email address. So I always take that and place it here. So again, that's a lot of settings. It's a lot of stuff to remember. We do this all the time. We can help you through it. If you're following along and you're like, I got it, then go for it. If you want some help with that, please let us know. But those are important settings in order to have that work. So I do want to point that out one more time, what I was doing there with the metadata. The metadata, sometimes we'll hear from people, I go to Stripe and I'm trying to figure out what this is and I don't know what it is. Honestly, you can pull any field from a form and send it in the metadata section over to Stripe by adding its key. First underscore name, last underscore name, email. We could add in the shirt number if we wanted. So you do have the ability to do some rural setup on the metadata that pulls over to Stripe. Very advanced stuff, folks. So I understand if you're glossing over right now, or if you've turned away, and I apologize. But see how first name, web form submission values, first name, last name, email. This has to match the key. Once it matches the key, it carries that data to Stripe for you, and you have it in Stripe. So that's cool. All right. I've taken up a way big chunk of this webinar, a little more than I thought I would. So I'm going to stop, and it's Jordan's turn to grab screen and do some setting stuff for you guys.
All right. Thanks, Allison. So I am just gonna get set up here. Hopefully you're looking at my screen. What I wanted to do was spend some time within the settings tab of the web forms, because if you've ever played around in there and taken a look, there is a lot of settings in there that you can apply to your web forms. I wanted to point out some of the ones that we like to pay attention to specifically on the one each side, because there's some pretty cool things that you can do. So I am just in the back end of a web form. I am already within the settings tab, and I'm on the general settings. Wanted to point out a couple areas within here. One, this is where you can change the title of your web form. If you need to rename this title, if you are switching from doing your agency applications, if you used to name them 2021, 2022, and you're wanting to just call them agency application and remove that year, this is where you change that title name. You can also add a description here. I like these. It is an internal field only, but it will help me pick out the web form that I'm looking for. If there's one specifically that has something special about it, that description shows up to the right of that title on your web forms page. So if you have a couple different donation forms, this is where we can easily pick out which one is using which. So I like that description form that description field, sorry, within the general form settings. And then the other neat one I like to point out is the URL path settings. By default, when you are linking directly to a web form from your site, that URL alias is always going to be /form/the form name, which can sometimes be very long. If you are needing something shorter, you always have the option of just creating your own alias for this form. So if this one was Day of Caring, I can call it DAC if I just want something really short, and you can remove that form name kind of nomenclature altogether. So kind of a cool setting. I always like to point that one out because it is an option. You can control that. In the form settings, this is where you can close or schedule your web forms. We hear a lot about spam. I'm getting a ton of spam on my web forms. I'm getting hit with a ton of spam. One of the best things that you can do to avoid getting hit with spam is to close any web form that is not active. We see sometimes you forget to close them and you'll have 20 or 30 open web forms that are still out there to be found, that those will end up getting spammed. So if you have web forms that you are not actively using, go ahead and close them. You can always open them back up when you're ready, but we highly, highly recommend closing those forms. You also can schedule these out. I love this feature. You can do some prep work and tell the site to open and close the form automatically for you. This is great for any type of application that has a deadline or a registration process. You could do some open and close messages that will pop up so the user knows, hey, I need to come back tomorrow actually is when this form opens, or if it's closed, I love to put this form is closed, please contact so-and-so if you have any questions. So there's some options there for just some personalization. And then Allison already touched on, but at the very bottom of this page, you have those preview settings. There are also some neat settings with the wizard progress bar. So if you do have a multi-page form, there's some cool settings in here. You can show a percentage of how much the user has completed. You can change the wizard start labels and end labels. So if you want those to say something specific, you can put some little customization within this part of the form as well. All right. Under the submission settings, there are a couple areas that I wanted to point out. The first one is the submission limit settings. And I don't see this one come across too often, but if you need to limit how many submissions you receive on the form, maybe if you're only allowing 100 submissions on the form, you can limit that here in the back end so that once you've hit 100, it won't let users submit on the form anymore. Now, keep in mind, this will not be able to tell if it's a duplicate submission or not if someone filled it out a couple of times. It's just going to cap it at total submissions received. So you can play with that setting if you need. You also have your draft settings. So if you are requiring users to create an authenticated account to log in and you want to allow them to save a draft so they can come back and work on it later, that's also within the submission settings. You'd want to change that to authenticated users only. If you are not needing users to save a draft, it's fine as disabled. Along with the draft settings, one thing that I love that goes along with an application process, if you are using the same application year over year with no changes, it's the same form, they have to fill it out every year. You're requiring authenticated users to fill it out, which means they need to log into your site to be able to see it. You can autofill their submission with the previous data that they submitted, which is very nice. So especially if it's a multi-page form, if there's lots of sections they need to fill out, you can autofill from last year and they just need to update the new information. So that's a nice touch. That's found under the submission settings within the web form. Under confirmation settings, there are a few different confirmation types. The most common and the default type that you will see on your web forms is a page. This is a confirmation page that someone will see once they click that submit button. The other big popular one, and the one that we see a lot now, is the URL confirmation type. So if you are wanting to send them to another page. Maybe you're just collecting, they say, I want more information about this program. They fill out the form, and then you want to actually send them to a page where you have more information about that form. You can do that with the URL confirmation type, and you'd put that page name down here. This is also where you would, if you're using one of our pledge cards that you have thank you pages lined out, or that Stripe payment web form created, you would want to use the URL confirmation type, and then a little token would go within that URL using the payment key. As Allison was pointing out earlier, that key field is important. You would pull that in here, and again, our team can help you set that up. Emails and handlers. This one you should be familiar with, how to add an email handler to your web forms. That's kind of a basic item to add, but we will cover option checkbox limit handlers. That may be a new one that you haven't seen yet. I will touch on that in just a moment, but that is a handler versus an email. Just like that Stripe handler, there is an options checkbox limit handler. If you do not see this as an option, please submit a support ticket. Our team does have to add this option to your site for you. And then to round out all of the web form settings, there is also an access tab over here. This is mainly for those more complex web forms. If you're working with authenticated users that are logging into the site to fill out forms, you'll want to make sure that you are adjusting this so authenticated users can create submissions, they can view their own submission, they can update their own submission. There's a ton of different options in here too for deleting submissions. You can update any submission. This is a big one as well. But you can set permissions for these forms based on the different roles on your site. So if you have a secure area role, where volunteers are going in and they're needing to update web forms, you can give permissions per role, and you can also give permissions per user. So even if you want to work with maybe one of your partner workplace campaigns, and you want to give their payroll person access to just view the results of a certain form, view any submission, you can create a user account for them and just give them access to just the web form data, not to your whole site. And that can be really kind of helpful, a neat thing. Again, your account manager can go through more detail with you on this and help you set that up. Okay, I know we're running on time, so I'm going to kind of whip through here.
Doing good, Jordan. You go.
I'm just trying to touch lightly on the highlights of those, just of those settings, but I want to dive into the option limit checkbox handler because I really think that's very valuable to add, and there's a lot of use cases for it. So I have a demo day of caring sign up form that we've created here. It's pulling up some contact information. It's going to ask you about your t-shirt size, and then it's going to show the volunteer needs. And we've broken it out by location and put in all the different options. Hey, we've got, nature trail cleanup. We need to paint the playground. We need someone to actually be here specific times for a food drive location. So there's a ton of different options. And what the option limit checkbox handler does is it lets you place a total number of options you want to collect for each sign up category. So you only need 5 people for each one of these, but you want to make sure that not everyone signs up for the same one. You can use this option limit checkbox handler, it's a mouthful, to remove that option once you've collected 5 people. Once 5 people have signed up for it, that option goes away and there's only the other, 4 or 5 options they need to choose from. So there are a few different settings here. And some requirements to use this. You have to be using the checkboxes in order for this to work. So you need to give them an option to select multiple things, but it does have to use the checkboxes. And when you add this to the form, you're going to be actually in the settings of your form. And this is under email and handlers. And you would add a handler and you'd select the option checkbox limit. I've got all of the handlers added for each of my 4 options here. So we'll take a look at the back end of that. So this one is for the elementary school option. So if you remember on the form, let me open that up. under my elementary school locations, I had 6 options for volunteer spots. So what I can do is when I add the option handler, it's gonna tell me, hey, pick a element on the form that this applies to. So I selected, I need this to go to that elementary school location checkbox option on my form. And when I did that, it populated all those options that I had inputted in down below. And here is where I can set limits on each one of those. So I can say they're all 5, a limit of 5, or hey, maybe this one is a limit of 10. I can custom kind of put what that limit is. I can also put a default limit. If they're all 5 and this doesn't really apply, I can just put a default. And that way, if you add new checkboxes or new options, you know, a week from now, it's automatically going to be given that value of 5. It's a default value. So let's put a couple of 1s in here for now. And let's take a look at another one. So this one, same thing. This is the food drive handler. So again, I did, oops, it's right here. That food drive, this had the different times that we needed people to attend. I have that food drive element selected, those checkbox options there, and the different times down here as well. Underneath, there are some limit settings. So you can have, once that limit has been reached, meaning once someone has picked that 5 times, a little message will pop up that say it's not available. And then there's also some behavior that you can show. You can disable that checkbox option, you can remove it, or you can do nothing to it, which I don't really recommend. I usually recommend disable or remove so that that choice is made very clear that no one can sign up for it. But there's some options here with what you want to see happen. So I just want to show you what that looks like. So we've got a few of the different options showing here. We've got 0 remaining, 5 remaining. These ones you're not seeing. You have the option to not show that amount as well. But if we click on a couple options here and do our security question, I just want to show you what that form looks like once those choices have been taken away. So let's go back to our form. We had 6 options up here in the elementary school. I chose a couple that had 1 option. So those, now we only have 4 options. So they were completely removed from the form, which will help make sure that all your options get chosen here. I did not reach the limit in the 8 to 1031. So that is still showing up on my form. So cool options here. Again, if you need help with this, let us know. We can dive into this a little bit further.
And I do just want to throw out, because I always see folks trying to do a little bit of complication to this. This works well if people are doing one form at a time. If they're like, now I'm registering person number 2 with the same options, it's not going to have the ability to know person number 1 pick this person. It's a one form at a time kind of scenario.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Allison.
Welcome.
All right. And then the last thing I will touch on today is security questions and CAPTCHAs, because again, we do hear a lot about spam hitting your sites. We have some measures that we can take if you're getting blown up with spam. Our support team can definitely take a look at that and put some measures into place. But there's some things you can do as well on your forms to help cut down on those limits. And one is on every single web form, there is an element called CAPTCHA, and you have the ability to add a CAPTCHA to every single form. It is called CAPTCHA. Don't worry about the key. It can stay CAPTCHA. That won't show up on the form. What you'll want to change is the challenge type, and there's a couple options here. The default option, which we will add, is that checkbox that pops up. So once I've added that to my form, I have this pulled up in another browser that I'm not logged into, so we can see that CAPTCHA. But that default option is just that, hey, check that you're not a robot. That is what that CAPTCHA looks like. The other option that you have is you can do a math challenge. And this will put a simple math formula up on that web form that looks more like this. Hey, what's the answer to this math question? And they have to solve that correctly before they can submit the form. So a couple options there. The other option that we see, and we call it, is adding a security question like, what color is the sky? Everyone's going to say blue. It's a very common answer. So you can add a question like this on your form as well. And to make sure that it works, let's take off our CAPTCHA so I can show you that. There's a one step that you take within that element to make sure that they can't, put the wrong answer. And if I were to put, let's put pink, it's going to say, hey, you need to request this format. It's not going to let them hit the submit the form until they put in the correct answer. And there can be variations here. Someone could type in all caps. Someone could type in all lowercase letters. Someone could do just the capital B, and then the rest are lowercase. So in order to make sure you're capturing all of those different types of correct responses, within that element setting, at the very bottom, you want to, always make sure that this question is required and that they have to fill it out in order to move forward. But then under pattern, you'll want to put all the different options down below, and you'll separate them with the kind of pipe bar that you see on your keyboard. So we can put blue in all lowercase, blue in all uppercase, and then blue with just the capital B. So you'll want to make sure this is filled out in order for that security question to work. But it's another just helpful spam kind of prevention to have on that form if you notice you're getting hit with quite a bit of spam. So I wish we could prevent all of it. Unfortunately, we're not able to eliminate spam altogether, but these will really help cut back on the amount that you're receiving. Okay, I know we are close, so I'm going to pull up our closing details here. As a reminder, all of our webinars, they are recorded. We post them all to our support channel, which is at support.oneeach.com. There is a webinars section there, and you can pull up every single webinar we have done. You can go back and rewatch all those recordings. This one will be on there. Give us about 24 hours, and you should see the link on there. If you need help, if you are wanting to set up a Stripe web form, if you're getting any type of error message, or you're wanting to add maybe that option limit checkbox handler to your form, please reach out to our support team. They are there 24/7 to help with your questions. If you are loving everything that you saw today, or you have more questions, reach out to your account manager, book time with them. That's why we've got account managers. They're always happy to meet with you guys and walk you through this. So don't be afraid to book a meeting with them. And then looking ahead, what's coming up for the rest of the year, which seems so crazy. I can't believe we're already in September and we're close to the end of the year. But next month in October, we have a special guest presenter coming, Jeremy Weedman, and he is going to run through all things Google. I am so excited about this webinar. He's going to cover Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Search Console, and how that relates to your site. It will be recorded, but it's going to be a great webinar to come to, especially if you have questions. There'll be a small Q&A at the end of that. In November, we're going to go through end of year giving so that you guys can start preparing your sites for December and end of year giving. And then in December, we're going to go through website goals for 2024.
Yay!
Questions. I know that was a lot to rush through at the end. Hopefully that
I'm
was
so sorry.
helpful.
I meant to give you a little bit more time than that. I apologize. Question that just popped in: if you move to Stripe Web Forms, do you lose PayPal as an option that CVCRM gives you? You can still have a PayPal. It won't be embedded like it is. It's not the same as what CVCRM does, where it runs through. So you would just link to PayPal and they'd have to enter an amount. So kind of talk to your account manager, see what works for you. In some cases, maybe you really like the options you've got in place now. One of the other questions that had come in that I did type a response to, though, someone was really focused on the keys that we were talking about, like first name, last name. Yes, that is how you can actually customize auto replies and different messaging on the site, is by utilizing that whole structure of web submission values. So talk to us. We can help you with that. If you're really wanting to customize and use those, that's an option. All right. We are good. Brain is full. I agree. So we are going to close this out. Thank you all so very much. We'll send the recording out and we'll see you next month. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.